They're not trapped by the same bureaucratic borders that have been set up that people have been a part of. They haven't run into those walls. So they don't see nearly as many roadblocks and as many distractions. It's just, hey, Katie, bar the door. Let's get down to business.
Big balls.
It's big.
That should be obvious.
So I said it, and honestly, I didn't even think anyone would notice.
Zach Abraham, hello, my friend. Did you see the Fox News interview with the DOGE team?
Yes, particularly with the big guy.
Oh, Big Balls.
Big B.
Big Balls was there.
Big Balls.
Yeah. So you actually,
Yeah.
I don't know if people knew what Big Balls looked like, but he's just this nerdy looking kid, which was so funny.
It's so
but
funny.
I know, and it was good. And he said he had a funny reason for picking the name. But anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, it was so fascinating because, I think that, and we've talked about the messaging around DOGE, right? It's like this, bigger than life entity that's just ruining everyone's lives or whatever. And it's just this table full of people and some who are like college age kids, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I want to play just a cut from it because there was a part of me that it just restored my faith in the next generation. Because here are some of these kids, a couple of whom dropped out of college to do this, who care so much about our country. And I'm like, how could you watch this interview and come away with anything other than a positive impression of the people who are working for DOGE? So here's a clip.
Speaking for myself, I dropped out of Harvard and came here to serve my country. And it's been unfortunate to see, lost friendships. Most of campus hates me now. But I think fundamentally, I hope people realize through conversations like this that reform is genuinely needed. And if there's one, I think this is important to say, if there's one group of people who really have a shot of success, it's the people here. They're up until 2 a.m., Monday through Sunday. DOGE does not recognize weekends. We're working all the time.
What inspired you to drop out of Harvard to do this?
There's a lot of reform that's needed. I think the value of this and the impact here is so much more vast than anything you could learn in a classroom doing computer science.
And you guys are sleeping here, I'm hearing. You guys are up all night. You have this meeting at 10 o'clock every Wednesday?
We'll probably go back to work right after this.
Yeah.
You're going back to work after this?
Yes.
Right.
It's almost 11 o'clock.
So that's early.
It's early? Can I go to bed? It's an incredible work ethic. You guys should be really, really proud of yourself.
It breaks my heart a little bit when that kid's saying, I dropped out of Harvard to do this and everyone on campus hates me.
Yeah, no, it's and it's so strange too, right? You hate them because they're hunting down ways that money is being wasted and abused. And your money, by the way, they're saving you money. You're worried about it. Yeah. And as for the question, it's funny when I watched that video, but when I heard that the DOGE team was young, the reason people are criticizing it is because they're know-nothing, accomplished nothing media types that haven't built a sandcastle and have no idea what entrepreneur. If I was going to run a department like DOGE, I would specifically not look at anybody over the age of 25 for those same reasons. You need people that are ideological. You need people that are willing to grind over laborious, mundane, like all these guys are doing. They're spending hours and hours every single day analyzing just lines of code effectively, right? Like that's all they're doing. And they're doing it to benefit you at very little cost, right? Like, and the funny thing is this isn't a political, USAID isn't in cahoot. Well, I mean, they kind of were, but it's not part of the Democratic establishment. It's not a Republican Democrat type thing. It's wasting money. It's peddling, the wrong kind of influence through the world and meddling in other people's affairs. And it's just, we've reached a point in this country where you literally, until there's a shift or a cultural move, communication's even impossible because, there's plenty of issues on both sides of the aisle, but those really vociferous, loud folks on the left, it's complete nonsense. And you can't reason with these people. It's just,
yeah. And you make a good point about
crazy.
If I'm looking for people to kind of go in and really turn over this archaic system, because a lot of this is just by nature of like limited tech. I mean, holding records in a old abandoned mine and all this stuff. It's probably not going to be older people who tend to not understand technology as well. And it's probably not going to be the people who've been working in that bureaucracy for years and years and years. It's going to be people who are going to come in and put a totally new eye on everything. And yeah, they're using AI a lot. You really think that the people who are going to go in there and know a lot about AI and reading all the little are going to be, you know, some 65-year-old lifelong bureaucrat? No. I mean, that's how we got in this position in the first place. It's interesting, though, that they're saying most of their work is done at night and in the early morning hours. So I think of it as like that's probably what they're doing instead of gaming.
Yeah. And you know, for something so in the investment community, you know, any critique of these guys' age did not come out of the investing community. You know, just because you know that like there's jobs in investing that, you know, our junior analyst Jamie, we throw these kind of jobs at him that none of us want to beat our heads against. And, you know, due to his age and the fact that he's, you know, just doesn't have any gray hair, you know, a lot of these things he gets into, right? He enjoys it. And we're looking at it going, man, thank God you do, because that's the last thing I want to do, you know? But yeah, it's anybody that critique that, I like immediately unveils themselves as somebody that's never managed anybody, doesn't know how to manage people, has no ability, hasn't built anything. Sounds like a media member.
Well, and how often do you hear people, oh, we want, you know, a bold, I hate the word bold in politics. You see it in every political ad, like, we're going to be bold and all, you know, think outside the box. And it's like, okay, is this not bold outside the box thinking to take some college kids who like to nerd out and code and game and use AI and use it to fix the federal government? But it's spun as this negative. For instance, so Wired did this article. It says the headline, DOGE put a college student in charge of using AI to rewrite regulations. In the first paragraph, a young man with no government experience who has yet to even complete his undergraduate degree is working for Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency and has been tasked with using artificial intelligence to rewrite the agency's rules and regulations. I mean, it's just so condescending. So, he doesn't even have an undergraduate degree, but maybe he knows a lot about AI and can do a really good job doing this.
I understand having a political side or argument that you want to push, but like the thing that cracks me up when I hear articles or I read articles like that, I sit there and I look at that, or I look at that journalist, whoever wrote that, and just think, do you not care at all about credibility? Do you not care at all? Like, I understand that you've got a political axe to grind here, right? But you're misleading people, right? And you're making it sound, you know, it's like Elon Musk is in there cutting. Elon Musk is cutting nothing. He doesn't have that power. That has to get approved by the same government bureaucrats that made those decisions prior to DOGE's existence. Okay, period. Plain and simple. So it just irritates me. But no, I think it's fantastic. I think that you need more young blood in there. Obviously, you need to, you know, verify the work and make sure what they're doing, which they do. But yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that government needs more of, not less. You know, yeah. And you made a great point. I mean, who do you want to bring in? You want to modernize government, right? Is he going to bring in a bunch of 55-year-olds? Yeah, you guys are doing a bang up job, right? So I love it. I think it's great that the kids are civically minded. Again, I think it is sad to me because what they're doing should not be controversial whatsoever. Like at all. The whole pushback to this just is I think the pushback to the border stuff and the immigrants is insane too, but you can at least understand the narrative, right? We're a bunch of horrible racists that hate immigrants and don't understand we're a country built on immigration, right? That's the narrative, right? With DOGE, I don't know what's the reason, right? It's a bunch of scare stories. Oh, Musk is going to do this. Musk is going to do that. They're turning off our benefits. And it's just not the case. It's odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's political bias, but you know, when you look at it, do you think, so you work with, as you said, you have some young people on staff or whatever it is, and you know, do you see age, like, so when people watch this and there's this table full of people, and there are some people who are older that are working with DOGE, but you've got these kids that look like 15 years old. I mean, I think they're 19, 20, 21. One of them went by big balls on LinkedIn. Does it kind of hurt the credibility of their efforts just from a visual perspective to be looking at kids that young doing all this important work?
No, but Obama was hailed for it in his first run in '08. He had young guys working on his staff, people that were not fresh out of college, all of it. And that was one of the reasons you should vote for him. He was forward thinking. He's modern, right? He's not stuck in the old ways. Remember the young actors that left acting for a year to help on his campaign? They were 23, 24, right? When he did it, it's forward thinking. It's brilliant. Trump does it. We're turning it over to the kids. You're like, look, man, the kids have a hell of a lot better track record than you guys do, right? Like just, yeah. So now you want us to trust the people that created the problem to fix it? I mean, come on. It's I'm not telling you or your listeners anything you don't know. This is just TDS. That's all it.
100% TDS, but also to his point about I'm being people don't like me on campus or whatever it is. These kids could be doing anything right now. I mean, you look at all the tech entrepreneurs of the early 2000s who started some of the biggest companies in the world in their college dorm rooms. I mean, these kids could be doing creating the next SpaceX. They could be creating the next big social media platform or whatever it is. And they're choosing to dedicate some of their time to helping the federal government. And how cool for them too, to be doing it with Elon Musk, someone who I'm sure they just are like in awe of being able to sit in the room with him.
Well, that's another thing that I was going to say. If Musk hired him for this job, they could be working at Tesla or SpaceX right now.
Yep. Probably
Probably making way more money, getting stock, doing all these kinds of things. No, I would say that I think that being like, for instance, Big Balls.
Yeah.
His experience, including the name Big Balls, is probably going to make him a heck of a lot more money than the degree from
his
Harvard
ticket is
to.
punched 100%.
He's done. Though, yeah, Big Balls is gilded now. He's covered in gold, so he's set for life. But I'm probably a little bit hyperbolic to say heartbreaking, but it is sad because you're sitting there going, again, they're specifically doing something that is completely apolitical.
Yeah.
Right? Completely apolitical. They're doing it for very little money. Leaving college. Yeah, all of us should look at them and pat them on the back. But this goes back to that. Where was that thing where, or it was State of the Union address. Remember Trump called out several people and the left would refute. They refused to clap.
Yeah.
They refused to, where you just look at them and going, man, do you guys not see where ideology has driven you?
Like the kid with cancer.
Yeah, you can't clap for a kid with cancer. That's where your ideology has driven you. Like, you don't need to tell me anything else about your platform, what you think, who you're voting for. I see that, and my first thought is I want to be on the opposite side of that.
100%.
Whatever that is, right? I don't need to see anything else. You cannot clap for a kid with cancer. Good Lord. If that won't make you realize you're probably pushing the wrong cause, I don't know what would.
Yeah, it's also funny because I think on a few episodes ago, we talked about this article in our Doge Miss of the Week where they were saying, all of these cuts will make it impossible to hire new federal workers. What about Big Balls? Technically, he's a new federal worker. So they're recruiting all these really young kids who get to use stuff that young kids love, like everything they learn about tech and AI, and they get to transition it into this thing that's good for the country. So yeah, they're recruiting like the next generation of employees who are going to improve the government. So it's like the media covers it this way one way, that one day, the next day having all these people is a good thing, and then it's a bad thing. It's just ridiculous.
One last thing I want to say, just to like, if you hear anybody make that assertion, just how ridiculous it is about the age of these guys. One of the kind of well-known rules of thumb, if you will, in the investment industry is whenever you get late into cycles and you get kind of bubble-like environments, it's a quote that was made famous by Stan Druckenmiller, but several guys have parroted it and done this. What they'll typically do is they go look for the youngest analysts, the guys fresh out of college, because they don't have the scar tissue, right? And so where we'd step away, because usually the most gains are had right at the end of a bubble, right? Like that's where the market goes up the fastest, and you want to be able to, you want to be able to benefit from it. And guys like me start seeing those valuations spinning out of control, and we've seen crashes before, so we're like, oh no, we pull back on the reins, and usually way too quick. And what the young guys do is they haven't been scarred before. They haven't made all the mistakes. They're not as worried about misstepping. And so usually they do much better job picking more speculative stocks that perform better at the end of the cycle. But kind of the way to translate it is it's going to work the same with government, right? They're not trapped by the same bureaucratic borders that have been set up that people have been a part of. They haven't run into those walls. So they don't see nearly as many roadblocks and as many distractions. It's just, hey, Katie, bar the door, let's get down to business. And so I think it's brilliant. And I think that Musk knows it's brilliant, and Musk knows how to make things move, and he knows how to build things. And when you put young guys like that at the helm of a job like that, you're going to get things done way quicker and way more efficiently.
Yeah. All right. Proof's in the pudding, though. So on that note, let's get to our Doge miss of the week. I have had this frustration in our state where there's all these things that are screaming for federal intervention. Everything Trump's pushing against, we're doing in Washington state. The DEI, boys get to compete against girls, immigration, sanctuary policies, all of that. And Trump keeps putting down these executive orders that are like, don't do this, but our state keeps doing it. And there hasn't been any teeth yet, and I've been kind of complaining. I know he's only been in office for a couple months, but if you're going to put down the EOs, I want to see the teeth. I want to see there be some impact. So the question is, do we need to start to see that with Doge? So you've got kind of two things. The financial savings, and we've seen that, start to come in, not as much as he'd promised, but significant amounts. The fraud thing is one where I feel like in order for people to believe that there's this much fraud, and because they keep talking about it, I feel like there have to be criminal charges that expose it. So Elon came out, he did an interview with Fox, and he was talking about Doge's craziest fraud findings. And he said Doge has found at least 100,000 active government employees who have applied for and received unemployment insurance. So
100,000?
100,000 that are active, that are getting unemployment insurance. So he says that, and it's crazy, right? And I know that they've started, according to Donald Trump, referring cases to the DOJ. But at some point, we got to see the hammer drop, because you could keep talking about these insane instances of fraud, but that should be an easy case to prove, right? Like, hey, were you employed? Were you not employed? Okay. If you were employed, then why did you apply for unemployment insurance? So I kind of am starting to feel that way, where I need to see someone prosecuted for fraud. Agreed.
And like you said, I need to see some teeth as it relates to states too. Yeah. And look, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not saying exactly what that is. I have heard people that are involved, people that have some let's see, that know and speak to people in some of those circles making some of these decisions. And what I was told was it's coming. I take that for what it's worth. I'm not breaking any news here, but it needs to. The other side of it is just straight lawlessness too, right? Like, I'm really interested to see how this gets handled legally. I do not understand when I look at the Constitution, and I look at how the federal laws. I'm looking at these executive orders coming down, and I do not understand how these governors that are taking the steps that ours is. And look, this isn't me threatening anybody or what. I don't understand on a constitutional basis how that's not seen as sedition or treason or something along those lines, right? Like, it is illegal to openly flout federal law. Yeah. It just is. And that's what these governors are doing. And I think at the very least, they should be completely cut off from federal aid until they capitulate. You don't get to make border decisions as the governor of a state. You don't. You're acting outside the legal scope of your job. Period. End of story. That is a federal matter. It has been settled. Federal supersedes state. And it's game over. This is a simple deal. And if need be, I'm in favor of those guys getting perp walked out of the Capitol. Right? Like,
yeah, I don't want it to come down to that, only because I know Bob Ferguson will love that. That's what he would live for, is Donald Trump's DOJ arresting him.
Oh, he would love that. No, but we're a rule of law. And to quote the great Barack Obama, elections have consequences. Right? So we're in for, and you can sling whatever superlative, you can sling whatever insult or whatever accusation against him you want to. The bottom line is Donald Trump is enforcing long held and recognized U.S. government law, and they are violating it. Yeah. And that's really simple. And it irritates me, not just because it's this, right? This topic, which is just insane. If you don't have borders or control over your borders, you're not sovereign, period. And this is all, and that's the problem. Ideologically, that's what they're after, right? The dissolving of what is America and what makes our culture great. And if you don't, I get ticked. It really infuriates me.
Yeah, and the education system is one that I think I feel the same way about. We've seen the most movement in recent days with the Department of Justice, the Department of Education coming out and actually launching a specific directed investigation for civil rights Title IX violations at the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction in Washington State. But then I think, okay, what is the end result of that? Is it something criminal for the superintendent of public instruction? Is it that they have to abide and stop letting boys to compete against girls? And I don't expect that kind of stuff to manifest overnight. I'm not expecting an investigation to be launched and there's arrests 2 days later. I get it. But at some point, circling back to DOGE, if there's as much fraud and waste and abuse, and again, some of it's criminal, the waste, some of it's not, but if there's as much fraud as you've told us there is, then we need, first of all, to start seeing it manifest into criminal charges, but also there's a deterrent factor there. You start making an example out of some of these federal employees who've applied for unemployment benefits and still had a job and were getting paid. You need to put their picture on TV, perp walk them, because we need to change the behavior moving forward. If 100,000 people believe they can get away with it, we obviously have a pretty substantial problem in government. So I want some mugshots, Zach.
I know. And people like, if there is that much, come on, right? Of course there's that much fraud, and there's more that we don't know of. And we haven't even started talking about how, part of it is, the one really convenient thing is DOGE was launched within what? Was it 12 to 16 months of the head of who was it that came out and just because we lost $1.2 trillion
Department of Defense.
Doesn't mean it. Yeah. I mean, there you go. Right? Everybody, there's not as much waste and fraud. And I'm like, okay, well, we, on top of DOGE, we just had the acknowledgement that $1.2 trillion is missing. So I'm sure that was all completely legally allocated and spent.
Yeah, innocent mistake, rounding error,
100%.
if you will. All right, in some Doge adjacent news, since you are our stock expert, so of course there's a lot of hand wringing, and understandably so. I mean, anytime the stock takes a dip like it did after the tariff thing, of course people are going to be concerned about it. You came on though, you preached to everyone, you got to be calm, you don't make any rash decisions, and I know that things change day to day, but now the stock market has wiped out those losses. Right? So it took a couple weeks. Is that a kind of I told you so moment? Or, I mean, is that?
Well, it depends. So not usually, because I've learned over time to be very, to seldom take victory laps, because it's usually while you're taking one that you get drilled. Yeah. Right? It's just kind of Murphy's Law in this business. But no, I actually took some heat online about, apparently people were saying that I was saying that everything was going to crash or something. And I'm sitting there going, buddy, we're up 7% on the year, man. We're having a nice start to the year here. We advocated to own less U.S. equities and to own more international and to own gold. Well, if you're not keeping up on current events, out of the 40 top performing countries' stock markets in the world, the U.S. is currently ranked like 37. Okay, so international has worked, and in spades. Gold up another 3% today. Our mining positions are up 45 to 50% on the year. So what I was saying, and I'll repeat this again, is if you are sitting in the typical US only stock market account where 95% of your assets are all in one country, you need to change that. And right now, you are getting something that the market rarely gives you, which is a second chance, okay? Because markets have bounced back. And I will continue to tell you, this isn't saying that the stock market's about ready to implode. What I am saying, though, is it's not an opinion, it's a fact. The U.S. is still more overvalued in relationship to other countries' stock markets than any stock market has ever been in history, okay? And money is starting to go other places. And when you look at investments in those other places, we're not talking about a discount to U.S. stocks. We're talking about trading at fractions of U.S. stocks. So it is very common for us in our research to find companies of similar size in similar industries that one is US listed, one isn't. Usually the foreign one, for a variety of different reasons, has got a cleaner balance sheet, usually some better growth metrics, especially if they're in more emerging markets. Anyway, you add all these things up, financially, the foreign asset looks better. Then you compare the price, though, and the US version is trading at between 4 and 6 times the valuation. It is absurd. And I'm less excited about the US stock market than I've been at any time, probably. And again, not talking about about ready to open up and swallow everybody. Just look, you got a market where growth is stalling out, inflation's a problem, and you're trading at 30 times earnings.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's just not attractive.
And not to over celebrate, I think one thing I've learned from you is, as part of an overall economy, not getting your hopes and dreams on stocks and where they're at. What comes up can come down and will. And Donald Trump is a fickle man, and what he does or decides to do one day could have a big impact. So you guys are actually having, for people who are interested, or if you're finding yourself losing having a semi heart attack every time the stock goes up or down, it's probably a good indication you're not properly protected against risk. So I know you guys are having, coming up on the 22nd, I know you do these live webinars a couple times a year. This one's specific to tariffs, right? So I guess if somebody's freaking out over tariffs and their retirement portfolio, what would they learn on the webinar?
They're going to learn more about, and for regulatory reasons, we can't go into all of it. Yeah. On the web, and time constraints too. But right now, when I make these comments about the U.S. being overvalued, right, that's just a soundbite. We're going to provide you the data. We're going to show you analytically what we're talking about, and we're going to show you analytically if you have the typical retail portfolio. That's the other thing we really want to get out to people. Look, we're not pitching you on some revolutionary idea, right? The normal U.S. portfolio you've got, it's not normal. Historically, compared historically, meaning we used to have much more diverse portfolios. When I first got into this industry, every portfolio you put together for somebody had a smattering of emerging markets, some precious metals, right? International stuff. You look at these, look at today, most investors out there own 2 assets. It's, 3, the triple Qs, QQQ ETF, SPY ETF, and the all world index through Vanguard. And they're like, yeah, that's my international. I'm like, go look at the composition of the all world index. It's all US stocks, man. It literally is a copy and paste of what you've got in the S&P 500. So what we're trying to show people is, hey, we're not advocating some new approach. What we're saying is everybody, right, just cognitive dissonance is kicked in, and the average portfolio is not where it used to be. It's a one-horse bet. You're betting on one country and that's it. You're not diversified. You don't have any metals exposure. You've got no emerging markets exposure. No, and all the different things that come with it. So it's just at no other time other than now would that have been considered a good idea. Yeah. And you're starting, when you look at the performance of the rest of the world compared to the US this year, it's night and day difference. And then you realize there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, so if people are concerned and that sounds interesting to them, it's Thursday, May 22nd. They can sign up totally free, knowyourriskradio.com. Yep. So at the very least, they'll leave maybe feeling a little more calm, a little more reassured, have some new thoughts about their retirement portfolio. All right, Zach, still bullish on Doge?
100%, man.
Even with big balls at the helm?
Well, that's a plus to me.
Yeah, well, it could be small balls.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'd rather it be that way. Yeah, so... No, I love it. I think those kids are awesome. And if you guys haven't seen the interview, it was really good and really cool and kind of brightened my belief for the next generation.
100%. I felt the same way. I loved it. I was smiling like proud mom. I was like, oh, if that was my kid, I'd be so proud of them. All right, Zach, we appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was fun as always.